Good afternoon or good morning. Wish I was doing this in person with you and the team we have here with us that's going to be doing this video presentation. You know, we're here to talk about Opportunities One, Ironworkers, Business Development, Salesforce, what we've been up to with this business called North American Contractor Link. I'm Jim O'Shew. I'm a business consultant advisor that came into the picture in 2017 to help Impact think through how do we do a better job standing up our own business development process and getting our iron workers to work where they're not today. How do we win that share? So that's what this conversation is going to be about. I'm pumped up that we've got a great panel with us. And what I'm going to do now is flip this over to a guy named Tim Spino who joined us. Tim's got a great depth of experience. He's been a hell of an addition to the team. And he's going to introduce himself. We'll get the panel to introduce himself, and then we'll jump into some content and we'll get going here. So thank you.
Great. Hey, thanks, Jim. Hey, everyone. My name is Tim Spino. I serve as the business developer coach or the sales coach with the guys converting these iron workers to business developers. And I look forward to talking with you in this panel. And I'm going to go through the group here that you're going to hear from a little bit later. Let's start with Rich Danko, if you can introduce yourself.
Good day, all. Rich Danko. I'm out of Local 3, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I cover the Pittsburgh and the Wheeling market areas. I've been with the program since 2017, and looking forward to talking with you guys.
Great. Benji.
Yeah, Benji Swanson. I'm the business manager out of Local 549, Wheeling, West Virginia. Third generation iron worker, and I've been with this since the beginning in 17. Look forward to talking today.
Great. Brian.
Brian Putman from Local 3, Pittsburgh. I'm with Somerset Steel. Been doing business development for them for approximately 4 years.
Great. And Gabe.
Gabe Broadwater, Somerset Steel out of Boswell, PA. Ironworkers Local 3. And I've been with Somerset for 20 years as field superintendent.
Good deal. And I think, Tim, I think that's the panel. So I'm going to hop into a couple of slides here, guys. And my goal here, and I'm going to go really quick so we can get to this discussion, which I think is going to be the most informative part of our time together. But I want to give you an idea of what this thing's all about, right? And it was interesting in 2017, I flew up to DC, I met with Kevin Hilton, talked to a bunch of guys, talked to the guys that were already working in biz dev on this effort. And it became completely obvious that the only thing that mattered was how do we put iron workers to work where they are not? So everything we do, every decision we make, we always hold that decision and evaluation up against, if we make that effort, we make that change, we make that investment, will it achieve this goal? Will we put our workers where they're not at today? So the story I'm going to lay out for you here in a couple of slides is how did we get started? What did we do in 2017? What did we learn? And ultimately, I'm going to show you the results of 2020, which give us a ton of confidence, man, that we're on the right track. And we're going to accomplish this goal. And fast forward a few years from now, with everybody's help, we're going to replace the competition where we're not at today. So back in 2017, when I came on board, and Rich, I actually met Rich right away. The organization was called Great Lakes Business Development. It originated out of the Great Lakes region, thus the name. And a couple of things that were pretty interesting in terms of that time we spent in 2017 going into 2018. It was interesting in discussions that I was always being challenged by, whether it was ironworkers, management, people outside the industry saying, wait a minute, whoa, hit the brakes. You're going to build a business development team taking ironworkers out of the field and you're going to train them up and run a process for business development? You know, have you lost your mind? That isn't going to work. We were challenged a bunch in the beginning. And the funny and ironic thing, I guess it's more ironic, is that on that original team, all iron workers, it was one gentleman who was a great guy. However, he wasn't an iron worker. He was a professional business developer from, you know, brands like Verizon and Google and the like. And you know what? That guy is not with us anymore. But every single iron worker that started in this process in 2017 and subsequently came on board, they're still here. And you know what? They kick ass. They're fantastic. They're great biz dev guys. And why is that? We can teach and we can work on the process of business development and we can get in those doors, but we need that skill in those doors, because when they're in the doors, we need guys like Glenn Jacks who can talk about conveyors. We need guys like Rich Danko, who's taught me a ton of things over the last couple of years, but we need that expertise. So this process is, how do we get those guys, those ambassadors of our business, into those doorways? So we had to change process. We had to think about technology. We had to think about how we were training them and go at it differently. And in 2019, we did. And in 2019, we made some huge shifts, right? We went from Great Lakes Business Development to North American Contractor Link. Why? Well, Great Lakes Business Development didn't really say much at all about what the organization was about. So we always had to explain, well, what the hell is this thing? And it really didn't just express the benefit. We are here to connect industrial facilities to great contractors. That's our mission.
And Jim, I'd like to just add real quick,
Absolutely,
one of the
Tim.
reasons why switching to North American Contractor Link brand is, right now, we're 9 BD guys strong, and we have
Yep.
guys in Alabama and Savannah, Georgia, Atlanta. So North American Contractor Link gives us a brand to expand this program across North America.
Absolutely. And fast forward, guys, right down the road, when we're throughout the country, we're up north in Canada, this thing has power. This thing's going to kick butt. We also re-engineered everything. We put Salesforce in, and if you're not familiar with Salesforce, it's a technology, a tool we use, which keeps everyone on track. It helps organize everything we do. It gives us transparency. Tim's going to speak a bit to that here in a minute. So again, 2017, 2018, bit of a rough start. Kind of just said, all right, guys, go out there and go get some business. We said, well, let's hit the brakes. Let's reorganize this thing. Let's think about training, tools, how we approach the business. And then, you know what, in 2020, we kicked ass. We really jumped in there and we took work from the competition. You know what, we're doing it profitably. One of the challenges I had coming in was, look at this business like a private enterprise, like I've always done in building businesses, and say, you know what, regardless of how the revenue comes in and where it flows, is it smart? Can it be done and done where it makes money? And you know what? It does, man. It makes money, and it's going to continue, and it's going to get better. So I'm going to share with you a bit of a dashboard here on how we wrapped up 2020. And then we're going to jump into quickly get into our panel, which I think will be a lot more interesting. But you know what, man? We replaced the competition in 59 facilities. So there's now 59 facilities, industrial facilities, that, you know what, they were using the competition. They're using our contractors now. And when they're using our contractors, it's not just once, 106 repeat projects in 2020. So of our facilities that are using us, that come to us, we get our contractors in there, they kick butt, they're quality, they're on time, on budget, solve problems, they come back. So 59 new facilities, 106 repeat projects. We did that on an investment of about $500,000. Not huge, but not small either, right? And again, back to that mission. We do everything and say, does that dollar being spent help us get our guys into jobs, into work? And it does. And so this year we put 43,503 hours on the scoreboard, if you will, of iron worker hours where we weren't before, taking that from the competition. We're getting repeat projects. One interesting note, and we didn't really think about this. Actually, I think Rich might have gave me a hard time in 2017, 18 going, it's not just going to be iron worker hours. It's going to be other trades. And you know what it is. So on top of those 43,000 iron worker hours, we actually booked about 65,000 hours in total multi-trade that go to our contractors that are multi-trade. So it stays in the family, so to speak. But again, it's just a big indicator of being on the right track. And back again, where I said, our challenge and my challenge specifically was, how do we do this profitably? We had to figure out a way to think about this, right, from a profit and an ROI perspective. So off those 43,000 hours, when we think about wages and benefits, right? And we use, 50, $55 an hour. It can vary depending on the region, but assuming that, make that assumption, we're generating about 2.3 million in wages and benefits, right? So 550 grand in, generating 2.3 wages and benefits. But we wanted to look at it another way, right? Maybe like a traditional business, like if we were the contractor actually taking in that revenue, we just want to make sure it's the right thing. We're doing this judiciously with our money, right? So 63,000 hours, use 125 bucks an hour, 150. I know it can all vary, but let's just say off all that business, we're generating 9.5 million in revenue. So again, $500,000 investment, 9.5 million in top line revenue. What does that look like from a return on investment?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim.
And Jim, what I was going to say is, as you take a look at these are just 2020 numbers.
Yep.
The important thing is a lot of this business, this repeat business, is going to come back to us in 2021, 2022, all the way to 2030. Once our contractors are in there, it becomes a vending machine of hours and revenue for our contractors.
Absolutely. And running those numbers out, right, guys? So ROI, and it's kind of a number we actually sometimes don't even want to talk about because it's kind of ridiculous, right? 335% return, but the number is the number. $500,000 in, 2.3 million on wages and benefits. And then if we wanted to take a look at it from contractor revenue, and we could argue all day long around what is the margin we make in this business. We're going to use 10%. Some a little higher, some a little lower, but even off 10%, right, of that 9.5 million, if we're making $1 million in contribution margin profit, right, and then we pay out the cost to generate that profit where we didn't have it before, we didn't have that business, we made 73% on our money, right, $500,000 in, and we're generating a tremendous amount more in terms of return. Tim was speaking a bit about how this continues to get better. One thing I'd point out is the way this is engineered and built, that $500,000 to run this program is a relatively predictable, not completely flat as we add markets and add advisors and more contractors, but it's a centralized operation. And so those dollars won't grow incrementally, but our revenues will, our hours will, our productivity will. So that ROI from this day forward can only get better in my humble opinion. And, that's where we're headed. So wanted to give you a bit of history when we get to the panel, really give you an idea that, we've got this thing dialed in. And we're ready to really go from where it's been chugging along in kind of a test bed, a laboratory for a couple of years and say, this thing is ready. We need to go build it. And with that, I'm going to ask Tim to spend a few minutes and really just hit quickly on people, process, and technology and kind of what we do to make this stuff work.
Yeah. And this is where, Jim and I tag team this quite a bit from developing the program, or really we talk about the engine, and the engine is BD, Business Development North American Contractor Link engine. It does have 3 pillars, and we developed things off of IIR. I'll tell you about Salesforce. Salesforce is probably one of the key technology pieces that we leverage in order to generate transparency, generate a operating rhythm, if you will. And I would tell you, in working with the guys from a Salesforce.com, they're probably on Salesforce as much, if not more, than their email accounts. Everything that we do is through Salesforce. It's what's unbelievable, and we'd love to come to your local and talk to you a little bit about how we leverage Salesforce. Is when we take a look at an opportunity that we're chasing, we get to see everybody that's involved. We get to see literally every single email that's associated with that facility. Every phone call is logged. It's an unbelievable tool. And the reason why Jim is able to talk about all those numbers is because everything is documented in Salesforce. And the other piece is when we report and close a win. Let's say we close a facility, we close a project and a win. Part of the technology integrating with the process is a win is not certified until we get third-party documentation from someone other than our our BD reps that win generated this many ironworker hours and this much revenue for the contractor. And we get the documentation from sometimes even the bid and RFPs that are submitted. We every single win, every single ironworker hour needs to be documented into Salesforce. So to back up a little bit though, based on the process, we pride ourselves, and we try to, our goal is to be completely pure on this, is when our guys are targeting a facility, a lot of the upfront work is to make sure there is not another signatory ironworker contractor in that facility. So, and we will do a lot of research. We'll ask around. We'll just make sure that when we go in and we're starting to build a relationship and put the time in to develop a relationship with those decision makers at a facility, we're doing all that work for naught. If there's another signatory ironworker contractor there. So that's a big piece of the process on the front end. And then in between getting to the actual identifying the project and going to try to win it and connect one of our contractors, it's all about how can we get our guys to literally get a walkthrough with that facility with a decision maker, whether it's a plant manager, maintenance manager, engineering manager. So we have a very specific process. At any point in time, we can go into Salesforce and see where we are in a process. Are we in stage 1 of the sales process with with Nucor or an account like that, or are we in the step 4? And we were able to forecast, and Jim will talk about that a little bit later. Salesforce not only reports the lagging indicator of what we've been able to generate. Salesforce actually can report what our forecast and what we're going to hit at the end of the year. So right now, as you all are watching this, we can actually forecast what number we're going to achieve by December 31st, based on using Salesforce and understanding the process and what the guys have been able to deliver. And then I like to end with the people side of it, because it is the most important thing. Is you give the right tools and the right technology and the right, that's the technology piece, but then the process, you give the right knowledge, skills, and ability. At the end of the day, you have to have the right people. And this is where I think this program has really hit its stride, is because converting these ironworkers to business developers, I tell you, if we can get our guys in a walkthrough with a facility, with a decision maker, 90% of the time, we're able to connect that facility with one of our signatory contractors. It is unbelievable, because they know the applications, they know the needs, they're looking around the plant. And I would tell you, they love it. They love going into a plant and looking at all the opportunities of how they can solve the problems with that facility. And that's where converting these ironworkers, 2 BD guys using the technology and the process and the engine that we've created, that's why this thing works. And I would tell you, if anyone were to come to me and say, hey, I got this, the best business developer that you can hire for this program, I would pass 10 times out of 10, because the secret sauce of this one is converting an ironworker who has the knowledge, skills, and ability to be able to solve problems for our facilities and the decision makers. That's where this thing is really differentiated. And that's why this thing is going to grow and be more successful, is because of that people piece.
Hey, Tim, thank you for that. And actually a pretty terrific segue, because like I opened with, guys, we wanted to give you kind of a sense of, a couple of outsiders that came in here in 2017 and kind of picked up that torch with a lot of your leadership and all of you, and said, you know what, we're going to go compete like hell and win business. Why don't we get to the folks that are actually doing that? So what we're going to do now, and I'll help moderate this a bit, is kind of get us kicked off here and ask our panel here a couple of questions. And actually what I'm going to do is throw this first question over to Rich Danko. And Rich, it's been a pleasure, man, working with you. But again, you heard me talk about it. I wasn't a skeptic, but man, there was people telling me this isn't going to work. So talk to us a bit about what has it been like, man? What was that process? How did that feel, going from out in the field to being a biz dev guy?
Thanks, Jim. So there was a couple main things that started, but it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge in the beginning. Coming out of the construction industry, working out in the field for 20 plus years, you were around people all the time. Whether it was if you were in the gang, you had a buddy, you had a group of guys that you were working with on a day-to-day basis, that you were getting projects and completing them. General foreman, you were still working with the guys around those people on a day-to-day basis. Going into this business development job, suddenly you're working by yourself. You don't have a buddy to turn around to, nobody else with you. So getting yourself more self-motivated to carry yourself through your day was a challenge at first. And the more you get into it, the more you do. And, you know, it's the same as iron working. You just put your head down and you go to work. Focus on the task at hand, and that was bringing iron worker hours into our market share. One of the second parts that was a little bit different was the results at the end of the day. Working out in the field, like I said, at the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, you can turn around and look over your shoulder and you see the project progress from, you know, a large hole in the ground, foundation, buildings, you know, the sidewalls, curtain wall, metal roofs, the whole process of a building going up, or a project in the mill getting completed. You can see that at the end of the day. With the business development side, sometimes you don't see direct results for 3 months, 6 months, maybe even up to a year before you actually can record a project as a win. In the beginning, we started out just doing a lot of cold calling and trying to get in touch with the decision makers at these facilities. It might take 3 to 6 months before you can even get a meeting with someone. Then once you do, to get them to trust you to give you a project, to bring a contractor in, and then you bring the contractor in, and that's when they take over and show them what they can do. By the time you get an iron worker there, like I said, it could be up to a year. You may get lucky and something may happen. You might, you know, get a good one and it happens in 3 weeks. So those were a couple of the struggles, you know, coming out of the field as an iron worker, getting into a business development role. But it's been going good.
Yeah, you know what, Rich, your results kind of speak for themselves. You know, I know you're a discreet kind of prideful guy and don't boast, but you've had a hell of a year, and from 2017, all that hard work and time on the phones and learning IIR and Salesforce have really paid off. So it's much appreciated.
Yeah, I'd just like to add before we go to the next one is, you know, Rich in 2020 only, you know, clocked about close to 17,000 ironworker hours by himself based on projects delivering into the system, delivering to the contractor. So you had a great year, Rich.
Thanks, guys.
Well played. Hey, Benji, and thanks, Benji, so much for being here and even the support over the years, and quite honestly, the honest feedback that we get from our business manager partners. So it's much appreciated. Encourage it here as well. Like go unhinged, if you will. But talk to us a bit about you know, how the program's impacted your local. But we're really curious, you know, what were your impressions, man? You know, what'd you think of this thing back in 2017, 18, and how's it come along?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I was first approached with the idea, I thought it was a fabulous idea. My concerns were, who are we going to get to man this and be the salesman? And my other concern was, who's going to be the boss over this whole program? And those ended up being the two big struggles. You know, we hired, like you alluded to earlier, we hired professional salesmen, we hired iron workers, tried to teach professional salesmen how to speak iron worker language, if you will. We tried to teach iron workers how to sell, and it was a struggle at first, but it quickly became apparent that teaching an iron worker how to sell was much easier than teaching a salesman our language as iron workers.
No
So
doubt.
that was my first concern. My second concern was, who's going to be the boss of this? You know, Impact's got their fingers in it, so to speak. Great Lake District Council was the guinea pig, if you will. The general organizers, president of that council, had his fingers in it. And the Great Lakes is made up of 7 different locals. So all those business managers, of course, want their fingers in it. So who is ultimately going to be the boss. And I think Jim and Tim, you guys were the third or fourth maybe at your positions since it all began. And ultimately it comes down to wherever that business development man is working, whatever local, that business manager directs him what to do and is kind of the boss, so to speak. If I don't want him in a plant, I tell him not to go there. If I want him to check this out, I tell him to go there. And Rich and I have a very open communication line, and he calls and asks me about plants. I'll call and ask him what he knows about a plant. So at the end of the day, my second concern was resolved quite quickly when it was given the responsibility of the business managers to kind of direct the BD guy on where to work in his territory.
Yep, absolutely. It's changed quite a bit, right, Benji? It's come a long way, huh?
I never gave up on the idea because I liked it from day one, but there was days I wasn't sure he was ever going to get through it or not. It just happened, but all for the better.
And Benji, you actually bring up a great point, that the collaboration between, we call them customer solution advisors. So we always, Rich Danko, that's his title, customer solutions advisor. And, the most important thing is that collaboration. What we've learned is every single facility has a different story, has a different background, has a different reason why they're not employing ironworkers today. And, and why they may not be employing ironworkers in the future. And the thing is each facility, because they're so different, the collaboration between Rich and you is so important, right? Why put a year's worth of work, sometimes even 2 years, Rich, into a facility without understanding, Benji, where you stand, right? Where, what the history was, what the story was, who the competition is in that facility, right? Let's say if there's a non-iron worker contractor in that facility, but you're trying to organize them in a big way, and we go and try to displace them completely, right? That makes your job harder. So that collaboration is so important in the front end, and I think that's what we learned too, is to make sure that before we set our targets and put these opportunities and facilities in our sales funnel, is that you and Rich need to be just dialed in together on who you're going after, and that's really worked well.
Yeah, and to add to that just a little bit, when I came here as business manager, there were certain plants in my area that we would historically been told, don't even approach them, don't waste your time, you're never going to get in there. They don't work iron workers, or all kind of vast array of stories. What we were told, funny, a lot of the places, once Rich got into them, were quickly to say, we've never been approached by you guys. We didn't know about you guys. So I've learned a lot about some of the facilities in my own territory just by having Rich approach the people, and a lot of them are open to us.
And just to add on to that, I worked out of the Pittsburgh market for most of my career, was very familiar with a lot of the places in our jurisdiction. Grew up working with the business managers, business agents, had a good feel for my own home local. And when I was asked to take over, the marketing part for 549, Benji's territory, in my career, I might have worked 3 days down in that local. So I didn't have an idea of where his people were working, where they were working, until you sit down and then you start talking about, okay, well, we're good in these areas, we're not good in these areas. So there needs to be that good line of communication between the business manager and the developer. Just to keep on clear, so you don't go in for say stepping on someone's toes where you already have people working. The last thing you want to do is bring another contractor into a facility where there's been a contractor working for 4 years. That's not what we want to do. We want to get into the facilities where we haven't been working.
Nope, absolutely, man, absolutely. And one more for Rich, and then Gabe and Brian, we haven't forgotten about you. Hang in there, we're coming your way. Rich, I think we've heard a bit from you and Benji, and I think Tim alluded to the benefit of being an iron worker. Can you elaborate a bit more on that? I mean, what do you think that's helped you with? I know Glenn Jackson, his conveyor background, I mean, there's a lot of expertise there, but yeah, speak to that a bit for us.
So working in the field for, 20 some plus years, was on a different wide variety of projects. You get to learn what's out there, what you can do, what the iron workers do. your buddy iron workers that you grow, are friends with, meet with, hang out, parties, friends. You hear projects that they're on, you learn about the industry, because one thing iron workers like to do is they love to talk about iron working, projects they've done, built, and so forth. So when you go in to talk to a customer and they start talking about moving a couple pieces of machinery around in the plant, you can start to look and see, the first thing that I do when they say we want to move machinery around, I start looking for headroom. Can you get a crane in here? Are you going to be able to, do you have an overhead crane in the building? How are you going to move this piece of machinery from the north end of the plant to the south end of the plant? And then you can start coming up with solutions, giving them some ideas so you know what they're looking for. You understand what their projects are, and once you understand what their projects are, you can help them come up with a solution, what they want to do. And then you know what kind of contractor you want to bring into the facility. If it's machinery moving, the contractors in your area that specialize, and that's who you want to put in front of them. Some other things on projects, let's just say it would be a small welding repair. Well, you want to bring in a small company that's going to be the right fit for that project, compared to if they need they're planning on putting in a addition on or a pre-engineered building. You want to bring them a contractor that maybe do the design build for them. And coming from the field, who those contractors are, the contractors that work in those areas that can come in and be the best fit for that project.
Yeah, Rich, I think echoing what you say there, right, is, we hear it from our customers. We hear the impact that our solution advisors have and our contractors have, on their situations in the plants and the facilities. And so I think that marriage, if you will, of the background of the advisors, the expertise and the training, and of our contractors, and Benji, to your point, the integration and kind of that insight and from the local makes this whole thing work, in those regions. So that cooperation is key. Flipping this over to Brian and to Gabe, talk to us a bit about, I think you did some intros, maybe, what you're doing at Somerset Steel, but share some of the stories, even the bad ones, the embarrassing ones about Rich and working with them. Those are always good to hear. And about, what are your thoughts on the future work with some of these facilities that you're getting into? Because we know that repeat business is important.
Actually, Rich and I have a background that probably goes back to probably 10 years or so, doesn't it, Rich? We did a project. We worked together out in a project in Pittsburgh. That's first I ever worked around Rich. We worked well together. He was steward on the job for me. We had a couple hiccups as far as the project itself. We got through them. Rich always got me good guys to do the jobs I needed done. And like I said, we hit it off from, I believe, first day, and that continues on through the business development side of it. Now, Rich will give me a call, say, hey, I got a project. You got a customer that wants to do this. I figured it would be a good fit for your company. You interested? And usually we'll work through the details in that, and I'll go from there. They'll do an introduction via email or a phone call to the customer, and then I'll take it from there, setting up a meeting with them to look over the project, which I'll take one of our superintendents, Gabe, would be one of them. We have a couple others that, depending what area that it's in, is who I'll ask to go along. I'll introduce our superintendent to the customer. We walk through the project, and then it goes from there. It basically blossoms from there, I would call it, because a couple places we've been in, that scenario has worked out, and they go directly to Gabe right now, contact him with whatever projects they may have, no matter how small or how large. It has worked really well. I don't see where it'll stop either.
You know, Brian, that's a good point. The piece on the small and the large side. What I think we knew when we started targeting facilities that it would be a slightly different beast in terms of how we approach it. The smalls, as we kind of call them, right? The small deals, the small, you know, blower fan here, et cetera. But what we learned quickly was that by pursuing those and just getting our contractors, getting you guys in front of those facility managers, those engineers, that it led to incrementally more smalls here and there, but then there's a few larger ones and it just starts to build. And you know what, that business evergreens because it keeps coming back. So once we boot that competition out there, taking one of those small deals, you know, they keep coming back to us. Gabe, any thoughts on that? I heard your reference there a bit with customers coming back to you, so I'd love to get your perspective.
Yeah, it's I haven't met Rich. He calls a lot, and he has put us on some good leads. And I'd like to echo what you know Jim said. It's getting us through that front gate and into the front door, meeting these people, and that's what Rich has done, and it's been successful at a few plants. And you know, it's getting your foot in the door, doing good work, and it's not only led to ironworker hours, but other trades as well. And it's just today there's more emails flowing in from, you know, that customer. So it's been a good relationship with Rich and everybody on that end.
Hey, Gabe, do you, so once you get into a customer, get into a project, you know, do you feel once you're in there, Somerset's in there, you know, what's the likelihood of you getting work while you're there, just showing up? What's the likelihood of getting that follow-up project?
Very good. I mean, it's, you know, when you're in there and, you know, you got to have the right guys, of course. I mean, you know who to take in there and what caliber job it is. And it's a 3-day job turns into a 2-week job, or, you know, it's those repetitious calls, shutdowns, even weekends, emergencies. It's nonstop. And like I say, it's bringing the right people in and the right contractor.
Yeah, and Oshu, Jim, the you know, one of the things that we talk about, and Gabe, it's a really good point, is, you know, I tell you, when we first go in, I mean, you know, our contractor is a new contractor, you know, has never been into that plant, or it's been a long while for whatever reason. And, you know, we have learned, I mean, a plant manager or a decision maker is not going to say, oh, don't know these guys. Hey, let me put them on my my shutdown, you know, my December shutdown, or, you know, July summer shutdown. We all know it doesn't work that way. It's, hey, let me try them out on this catwalk. Let me try them out on this, you know, this machinery, you know, move. And, you know, what we tell the guys, and what we had to set expectations is the small wins are the most important. I mean, I think some people have said, you know, you don't get an oak tree until you plant an acorn, right? And that's exactly what this is. We're going in territory we've never been, or haven't been there for a while. They're kicking the tires on us. We got to earn that right. I mean, I tell you, you get a 100 iron worker job, we celebrate that, because we know that 100 iron worker job is going to turn into 1,000 iron workers and beyond later on, once they prove themselves. And, you know, so the expectations, and, you know, this is one thing we worked with Benji and you know, the business managers, is saying, hey, it takes a while for this stuff to hit. And then once we hit, it's small, you know, it's small. And we love miscellaneous steel. Miscellaneous steel is great. But, you know, and because that, we know that we have a foot in the door, and we know every time their trucks or people are in the plant, something else will come their way. And that's our job, is just to get you in. And then once you get in and you earn it, the iron workers will follow, the iron worker hours.
Right. And not only that, I mean, Brian does a great job, business development, but he's a contractor, and, you know, they get probably 1,000 calls a day from local contractors, whatever it be. I think going through a certain hall or this program, it's it's that single guy. It's not a huge company, a small company that's been trying to get in. They have their companies and they try and stay with that. But this has been a success for on our end, for sure.
And I'd just like to add one thing into here. What you're hearing or lack of hearing is you're not hearing us talk about the facilities that we're working in. The contractors know that I work with all the contractors in our area. There's nothing to hide there. But once we get a relationship at a facility, and that's why, you know, you're hearing Gabe talk about the facility, the plant. You know, once I get a contractor in somewhere, we don't share that. It's discreet. It's kept it's a private relationship between myself, the contractor, and the manager when we get into these places. So we're not trying to take people out of places and put other contractors in there. You know, there's a trust between us that we have grown throughout the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Hey, Gabe, I think Rich needs to stop by when COVID's over and owes you a coffee and donuts or something.
I think you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Rich, we'll see if we can find a budget for donuts and coffee this year. Hey, I think we're kind of bumping up against the time, guys. I got a couple of quick kind of closing questions, and then I'll close out our discussion here. This is really going over to Rich and to Benji, and just Rich and really Benji as well. When you think about the future, you know, what's next with this? How do you think about that? And then Benji, at the very end of this, if you could just close out, you know, if you were speaking to a few business managers, you know, what are some of the finer points and things you would say, hey, just keep this in mind. So Rich, why don't you take that first one?
So in the beginning, the program started out, it was a little bit rough. 3 steps forward, 5 steps backwards, 5 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. And it's grown. It's grown tremendously with your help, Tim's help, Impact, putting the investment into us to see if we could do this program. And it's working. We can see that it's working. And what I see happening in the future is, and it's starting to get that way now. We're starting to get over that hump, and I think it's going to keep getting better and better. Is before nobody knew who we were. We didn't have a brand. We didn't have a market. Now we're out there. People know who we are. People are talking about us. We're getting referrals from owners to go to other places. And what we want is we want the people to be talking about us, to where maybe we're not cold calling as much as we were in the beginning, and owners and managers are calling us up. You know, maybe we're the buzz on the block. You know, we're in an industrial park. We're doing some work for a facility. The facility across the street asked them, hey, you know, who is that contractor? Looks like they did a good job for you. Well, you know what? They did a great job for us. But I found them through, you know, this North American Contractor link. This guy come in, told us about all the contractors, how they could help. And, you know, maybe you should get a hold of them, and they can bring you, you know, depending on what your project is, they'll bring in the perfect contractor to help you out. So instead of us doing the calling, I think the goal here is to just keep this moving forward and, you know, having the owners reaching out to call us.
You know, Rick, I would like to add to that. So when you first started, you know, even the first year, how many people actually called you, right? Versus, you know, them just replying to your cold calls and your, you know, your email.
Not many.
Right. Are you starting seeing now, you know, a few years into it, that you're now getting, you know, people are reaching out to you, decision makers for reaching out to you even now?
Yes, it's starting to happen. Like I said, we're starting to get up to that hill, and I see us getting to the top of it very soon, you know, to where it'll be, I don't want to say they'll be calling more than we're calling, but it'll be an equal share where, you know, we're still reaching out to places that we never have. And, you know, there'll be other places that'll be calling in because they hear about us. You know, there's going to be a little bit of a buzz out there about North American Contractor Link.
You know, and I'd like to add this, one of the things that we're working with the guys, you know, being the sales coach, which is has been awesome, very rewarding, is, you know, going into these and teaching the guys from, you know, when they're interacting with the facility decision maker, we tell them we're your easy button, right? You're trying to, get production out the door, and you go to work, and there's a 100 different reasons why, you can't get production out the door that day. And, there's emergencies, people didn't show up, and we've been there. We see these maintenance managers. I mean, they got, bags under their eyes. I mean, they're overworked, right? And underappreciated. And we just say, hey, we're an easy button. Just if you need anything, you got an emergency, you got a shutdown, just call us. And what we've told the guys too, and this is how we got into a little bit of putting some other trades to work, is, hey, if a facility calls us and they need snow removal, we're going to get them a snow removal contractor, right? Because every time they call us, that's what this is all about. If they can call us and we're their easy button, eventually they're going to call us and they're going to be needing our contractors and putting our iron workers to work. So when they call us, the answer is within reason. Yeah, we can get that for you. And if it's snow removal or watering their plants, we'll get it done, because we know we want that facility decision maker to trust us, call us first, and call us often. So we're really working on that big time now, Jim, and that's the stage that we're in. So anyway, back to you, Jim.
No doubt. And it's all, and Benji, I want you to close us out here, but Rich, appreciate the reference to, myself and Tim, but I will say this to everybody on this panel and everybody that's part of this thing. I mean, you guys do this. The advisors get out there, the business managers get involved, the contractors close the deals, it deliver, they call back to you all. And you know what? Golf course, bar, wherever they're hanging out, they hang out with other engineers, other supervisors, they're referencing what they're doing, how they're doing it. And I think that's why that phone is starting to ring. It's all you guys here on this panel, and to all the guys that are part of this, the other advisors and other contractors, it's because of them. So Benji,
Sure.
Words of wisdom for some business managers out there, my friend.
I would suggest to all the business managers out there, give it a shot. What do you got to lose? A little bit of time, and what you got to gain is market share and more man hours. But it's all comes down to communication, whether it be communicating with impact, with your district council, with the other business managers in your district council, or most importantly, your BD guys. Communications and patience, it's proven that it pays off here in the Great Lakes. And by all means, feel free to reach out to me or any other business manager in the Great Lakes District Council and ask them. We all agree it's successful and it's proven.
Very good. Hey, Tim, I'm going to close this out here. Any last thoughts on your end, or are you good?
Yeah, I have some last thoughts, and we can edit this out, if we're running over time, right? But here's one thing Benji said earlier. And we've learned this, right? It is so much easier to teach an iron worker business development skills and approaches than it is to get a professional, high-performing business developer. It's so much harder to teach them the ironworker language and what we do in the applications. And I would actually say, and add that to that, Benji, is like, Rich, worked jobs with Brian, right? Rich has grown up in the industry, he's grown up in a local, he speaks the language, but also the relationships are there and the trust is there. And, and there's a lot of trust in this. And I would say, we talked about the people and the process and the technology, where it all comes together is trust. You got to trust the technology and the Salesforce and trust that that's going to be a tool for you. And you got to trust IR and you got to use it, right? And you got to trust the process of, making sure you do the right work up front, identifying the right opportunity so that when you close it later on, it's something that we can certify and something that we can book. But you also have the people in this whole deal. I mean, if we have just this amount of people on the call, there's a lot more people.
Mm-hmm.
There's business agents, and there's other people, including other contractors that are getting us in because we're they're subbing us out. Some mechanical contractors are subbing us out. So the people side of it is that trust is really important, and I think that's where it all comes together. And that's why I will tell you until I'm blue in the face. Converting iron workers in this program and this engine that we built with North American Contractor Link, converting iron workers to business developers, that's our secret sauce. And that's what's going to cause this thing to be a huge success. Those numbers will look minuscule that we put in 2020. In 3 years and 5 years, those numbers will pale in comparison what's around the corner.
Yeah, and Tim, speaking to those numbers, good segue, thank you. Here's pipeline, right? Tim alluded to with Salesforce, one of the great things, and actually we pushed the Salesforce guys to build algorithms for us because they've never done it before and to do forecasting. And we're starting to see the benefit of those algorithms, understanding our pipeline, but we can see the work these guys are putting into this deal, right? So sitting here today, whatever it is, February 5th, 9th, whatever the date is, we're already sitting on a pipeline, gang, of 159 projects that our guys have identified. There's going to be budget. There's going to be more than likely a proposal, a bid, something to compete where we can kick other people out of those deals. On top of that, associated with those projects are about 95,000 hours. So we're in February. We're going to add, we're going to add probably another 70, 80, 90 projects to this thing before we get to September, October. We're probably going to add another 40, 60,000 hours. And I can tell you with the forecasting tool and what we closed, Tim alluded to that. Yeah, we're going to close business. And that point that we opened with, right? And believe me, the folks that manage us, that beat us up for the numbers, they never let us forget that's the only thing we need to do, which is to put our workers where they're not. All the damn time we think about that. So,
Jim, I will add to that too. Is when we presented the concept of forecasting this business, that was every sales organization has to do that. You have to forecast this year. You have to forecast next year. You have to forecast the year after, and building those algorithms and building that model. And we know right now, if we put a contractor and a contractor is actually bidding an RFP, we know 50% of those will win. We just know that. So that's what the data tells us. That's what our history tells us. So that we know that once we have an RFP, because that's one of the stages of our sales process, we can spit on that number saying 50% of those ironworker hours are coming our way. And that's why in January 1, we can, with 90% confidence, spit on a number in December 31st that year, 12 months later. And we can forecast that. And eventually we'll be able to forecast this thing out 3 years.
Yeah, it's working. It's working. So again, thanks, gang. Thanks everyone that attended. Huge props to our contractor friends, Benji, Rich, of course, we'll be talking to you, I'm sure, in an hour or two. But thanks, guys, sincerely, and hope to see you as part of this kind of growing family with North American Contractor Link. So have a great rest of your day, morning, evening, whenever the heck you're watching this thing. So thanks.